Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for a Monday, August the 7th, 2023. We have plenty to talk about, stuff we didn't get to talk about at the end of last week, stuff that's happening today, stuff that happened yesterday, just a whole jam-packed show for preseason. I tell you what, it's about as busy as it's going to get. I'm Jim Derry along with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Spencer, what's going on today?
Hey, it's going good, Jim. You know, just like you said, a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of football. Saints training camp, conference realignment. The news cycle isn't slowing down. We're into August. So, yeah, can't wait to get into it.
I know you think we'd get a break. Jerry's here. Of course he is. Hello, Jerry. What's going on? Mr. Horace is here as well, ready for a good show. We are going to have a good show today. Before we get to the what's going on, we remind you we would appreciate it if, no matter where you're watching, if you would go and subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel because you know, we put all kinds of stuff there. You can get notified of when we're going to have the show, which is Monday and Thursday. We have Datitude going on there. Zoe has all kinds of great shorts that she's putting up. I'm telling you, it is worth checking out the YouTube, the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Also, a reminder that Caesars Sportsbook is the official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. Today's headlines, well, we never even got to it. Who'd have thunk it? Saints running back Alvin Kamara suspended 3 games. Oh, we're going to talk about that for sure. I mean, 3 games. Yeah.
Derry, you were so wrong. You said a minimum of 4 games. You're just an idiot. You're a moron.
Even my own son was calling me a moron. Saints hosting running back Kareem Hunt and linebacker Anthony Barr. We're going to talk about that. That is going to be probably the 2/3 of our show, I would say. We're going to chat about the Pac-12 being near death. Only 4 of the Power 5 remain. Are we going to have a Power 4 or maybe even a Power 3 at some point? We're going to get into that. That is actually my rant for the day. And then Zoe's going to come on a little bit and talk about the U.S. women's national team being eliminated in a shootout versus Sweden. They lost. They were knocked out by, like, I don't even want to say inches, almost an inch. Whatever. That stupid replay. That damn computer killed them. They never should have been in that position, though. Had they made one of the kicks the penalty kicks they had before that, they wouldn't even have been in that position. Wouldn't have anything to worry about. All right. Let's get going here. Let's see. Underhill apparently tweeted out that Rashid Shaheed is out for a few weeks. I don't like that. I'm telling you, the Saints, remember when we talked about, Spencer, the no news is good news thing? Well, we've had a lot of news, and that's not good.
Yeah, too much news. And Demario Davis, another one. I know he's been reliable throughout his career, but he's getting up in age. And I think the Anthony Barr visit is a sign that the linebacker depth isn't where the Saints want it to be, as well as the running back depth, as we talked about. Kamara suspended early on, bringing in Kareem Hunt for a visit. So I know Jerry wants to sign him. I think they want to as well. They just got to work out the financial details.
Well, I apologize if I'm moving a little slow, like back and forth. I tried to work on some things right before I went on here, and I think it's eating up some of my memory, my RAM here. So I'm no computer expert, so I'm trying to get back to speed. So if I'm like flickering across the screen, I'm probably better that way. I'm like a cartoon character or something. I don't know. Nola says, Jerry says that now U.S. soccer fans can see real football. Sorry, Zoe. I had to show that.
Dang. Jerry throwing shade at the football.
Well, I mean, one of the questions I'm asked Zoe later is anyone going to watch the rest of this stuff now? Uncle Big Nick is with us. He wants to talk about
UBN. What's up, man?
Best boxing match. I'm sorry, UBN, but we're probably not going to get the Ramirez.
That's my rant. That's my rant.
Oh, there you go. So we will get to it.
At the end of the show. Stay till the end.
Spencer's going to talk about boxing. No, really, baseball. This was the joke. It's a joke if you don't get it.
Worlds collided.
Yeah, lots of worlds collided. Something collided for going on. All right. Let's move on and talk about the Saints. And I want to go where we kind of left off on Friday on Datitude. And I said it on the podcast that it happens so often that I do a podcast with some subject of something going on, and then I hit the publish button, and within 15 minutes, a result of whatever I'm talking about is the result comes out. So, and I even said it was going to happen. So if you would have put a bet after the podcast was over and you listened to it quickly that the Kamara suspension was going to come out Friday, you won. Good for you, Ching. Now, getting to that, I'm interested to hear your take, Spencer. 3 games. You and I think you were a little lighter than me. You thought it would be 6 games, maybe down to 4 after an appeal of some sort.
Mhm.
And I thought it was going to be 6 games with a minimum of 4. So we weren't that far off in the grand scheme of things. But your take on only getting suspended for 3 games.
Yeah, I think he got very lucky with this. Got off pretty easy considering there was video evidence. But it definitely helped that he cooperated throughout the entire process, didn't slip up at all post the incident. So after the incident, he handled his business, and I think that helped in this decision. I feel like a lot of players tend to probably say the wrong things and not conduct themselves all that well, because it is kind of tough. I mean, when you do something like that to
Sure.
bounce back, and I feel like he made a mistake though, and to me he should have paid a little heavier price for it. I feel like even though he cooperated and stuff, I feel like 3 games is pretty light considering it was there on video. He clearly threw a couple punches to where that should have been, to me, 6 games, maybe 5 since he cooperated. But the Saints and Dennis Allen even admitted it. 3 games seemed like pretty fortunate. So
yeah,
if you're the Saints, can't complain.
I think everyone involved. I think Alvin Kamara was doing a big whoosh dance in his house, den, or apartment, or whatever he lives in, condo, whatever it is. He was doing the happy dance, because I guarantee you the Saints were doing a happy dance. As you said, Dennis Allen not all but said, he said it. He said, we got off light. We got lucky with this one. And I think that anyone that saw the video, I've said this time and again, I know I've lost some Derry lovers. Not that there were any of those, but if there are fewer, because they didn't like what I had to say about Kamara. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with me, but that was light. I mean, that is ridiculous. And we kind of talked to pre-production. You want to compare what Alvin Kamara did, and it's similar, probably not on the same level as what Ray Rice did, a decade and a half ago, or however long it was. He was the same age as Alvin Kamara. He did it to his girlfriend, domestic violence issue, also on video. Not only did he get suspended, but basically it ended his career. And you can make, we're talking about whether his career would have been over anywhere or not. We don't know the answer to that. But he was 27 years old and his career was over. And so Alvin Kamara, similar situation on video, although obviously it being a man, an unconscious man, by the way, and he only got 3 games. So I don't understand where there's consistency. I'm not saying he should have been suspended. Well, I mean, I did say he should be suspended for a year. I'm not saying he should have been suspended indefinitely and banished to Never Neverland, because quite frankly, at Kamara's age now, we don't know how much longer he's got, which is going to lead us to our next topic in just a minute. But there's no question he got off light, and I think he's thanking his lucky stars. All right. If you look at these numbers on the bottom of the screen and how they affected the Saints' odds, well, they didn't affect them all that much. The only number that I see that's really different here, again, these numbers are from Caesars Sportsbook. There are different numbers other places. If you want to get the Saints at plus 4,000, shop around, you can find it. I promise you. But the only number I see that's really different is the Saints to win the NFC South has moved from plus 120 to plus 115. Not that big of a deal. Not that much different. Saints to make the playoffs, still minus 180. To miss the playoffs, I'm fairly certain it was plus 150 before. Yeah. So not a lot of changes, Spencer, just that the odds to win the NFC South ticked down just a little bit. I'd be surprised if anything else ticks down the rest of the way. Right.
Yeah. To me, it kind of makes it, not that I was against betting the Saints to win the NFC South, but I always was saying that the Falcons and Panthers could offer value.
I agree.
And now with this slight change,
especially the Panthers.
Right. I forgot what they both were, but it was both, I believe, plus 200 or above.
Oh, no, more than that.
Yeah.
I think Panthers are like
both of them.
Yeah, I think Panthers are like plus 300 or somewhere around there, and the Falcons actually a little more than that. I want to say they're like plus 400. I know Tampa Bay is like the plus 7 something range. So
they don't waste the ticket on Tampa Bay.
Oh, I agree.
Play the NFC South, play I'd say they're all at plus odds. If you like the Saints, you could play the Saints and then hedge with the Falcons and Panthers. If you're really going for value, then I wouldn't even recommend the Saints. I would just say Panthers and Falcons and hope that the Saints don't win it, because the Bucks, there's just no way. I mean, looking at their roster, and went on my rant last week about Baker Mayfield, is just that just don't waste your time with them. They're poorly coached, poor quarterback play, poor offensive line play, and aging defense. Not it.
I'll be getting to the Tampa Bay Bucks in my NFL preview section. First week of September is when we have the NFC South. Terrell's here. He says, "Who dat?" Well, I know Terrell's happy about the Alvin Kamara suspension only being 3 games. And this is the last thing I'm going to say on this before we move on, because I want to talk about Kareem Hunt and Anthony Barr. But can Saints fans now stop saying that the NFL hates the Saints? Can we just agree now? Maybe they hated Sean Payton. I don't know what it was. But this is like a gift. This is like an early Christmas present that Alvin Kamara only spent 3. Can we stop saying the NFL hates the Saints now? I mean, I've been screaming it for a couple of years, but
oh no, you're a moron, Derry. They hate him. They just hate him.
All right. Anyway, Kareem Hunt is at Saints camp along with Anthony Barr. What does this mean for the New Orleans Saints? We'll get your take, Spencer. I'll come back with mine, but Kareem Hunt can only help bolster a running back core. Again, Kamara going to be out for 3 games, but if they sign him, they're not signing Kareem Hunt for 3 games. They're signing him for a season.
Yeah, I think so, because the backfield depth needs shoring up there. So I think he could be, or we'll give a little fantasy football take for y'all. I think Kareem Hunt could have some fantasy value, because he'll be, at minimum, the primary third down back to start the season. Yeah. And if Kamara can get back into form, then Hunt will probably just fall back into a bench role. But if Hunt shows well, he was a guy that was capable of being an every down back. If he shows well, that could end up an ugly situation for fantasy, because then it'll be a committee with him, Kamara, and Jamal Williams, not to mention the rookie Kendre Miller getting in there. So, yeah, when Kamara comes back, something's going to have to give. I honestly don't know if he does come in, his roster spot might not be safe for the full season, because that's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. But I definitely think early on, assuming he gets signed, that he'll be that third down back and offer fantasy value alongside Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I think that them signing Kareem Hunt tells me that there is a perceived lack of depth. You can say whatever you want. And again, I use my son as an example often, because he's a 25-year-old know-it-all. And so many people out there, just they're always high on the Saints. It doesn't matter what happens. They think the Saints are going 15-2. They're going to win the NFC South easily, be the number 1 seed, have that bye. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So I don't – first of all, you can never have enough running back depth, okay, first off. But second off, to me, for them even thinking about bringing in Kareem Hunt tells me that the Saints don't think they have enough running back depth. Mr. Horace is saying, it's hard to have too many running backs the way the injuries happen. Absolutely. El Rey planning for injuries with older backs. And quite frankly, Spencer, that's where we are now with, we've talked about this before. Alvin Kamara is no longer a spring chicken. He's at that age where this is about the time that running backs start thinking about retirement. And that's where we are.
Right. Yeah. Because if you bring in Kareem Hunt, then your average age of the backfield is up there, because I think they were all from the 2017 draft class: Hunt, Jamal Williams, and Alvin Kamara. So, and then honestly, like, as the year goes on, it probably will take care of itself. Odds are one of them will end up injured, to where you won't be able to have 3 and the other will be inactive.
Yeah. And, you talk about that. To me, I always look at, we had the same situation not too long ago when the Saints were talking about bringing in Latavius Murray. I mean, the first time. And they were saying how he was the same age as Mark Ingram. But you look at the stats, and he had way fewer carries than Mark Ingram had. So, to me, the lifeline of a running back is not so much his age as it is how many times he touched the ball, which means how many hits he's taken. And Kamara has touched the ball a whole lot throughout the course of his career. Jamal Williams, to me, didn't really become that big feature back until last year, and he finally got his chance with the Lions and got a chance to get out there, head over 1,000 yards. and had 17, 18 touchdowns. I think he's going to be in that role again. If you draft, we'll talk about the fantasy impact in this later, but I think if you wanted to draft a Saints running back as your fantasy number one, I wouldn't advise it first off, but if you were,
don't do that.
I would take Williams first. I think he's going to be the one that's going to get the most fantasy points from this team. I just do. And not just because AK is going to be gone for 3 games. So
the goal line back, if he can replicate that role again and get double-digit touchdowns. He was, even though he doesn't catch many passes, he was like a borderline top 12 fantasy back last year. And you could get him so late in drafts. That's another good thing with Jamal Williams. You can get him so late, and with Kamara's suspension only being 3, his average draft position's about to go up. So, take advantage of that value with Jamal. And then you could even draft Kendre Miller as a handcuff late because he goes late in drafts.
For sure. And Elray brings up a great question that I have. I mean, they're bringing in Kareem Hunt, and they're bringing in Anthony Barr for linebacker depth. That's great. And I think Anthony Barr, I mean, obviously they have depth issues at linebacker. But to me, the number one position of lack of depth is offensive line. And Saints O-line is a big question. I mean, I want to know, I have not heard any, and I keep saying this, and no one is bringing this up. I want a writer, someone who covers this team, to ask them more about Andrus Peat. I was on 4th Down and 4 last night. Doug Mouton says it doesn't matter because James Hurst is going to start at left guard and Andrus Peat isn't going to play anyway. Well, that's fine and dandy, even if that's the case. Even if James Hurst is going to start at left guard, you need to have solid backup. Andrus Peat needs to be healthy, or they're super thin, because what if Trevor Penning isn't ready? I mean, we saw him play last year. That doesn't mean he's going to be ready to play left tackle. I think Hurst is kind of the backup plan there. To me, if Penning can't go, Hurst shifts over to left tackle. Pete is got to be in there and be ready. But no one's talking about whether he's healthy or not. Oh, it's no big deal. Saints are famous for not telling us what's going on, and nobody presses them on this. I want to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and then it drags on, and it, like last year with Pete Werner, Marshawn Lattimore, Michael Thomas, just example after example of this, and really hope this doesn't happen again. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is another one now that's week to week, so it's I hate to say it, but it's looking like more of the same with these injuries, to where they better hope
I agree
they get these out the way before things really ramp up, because if you end up, they're going to go, 7-10 last year, 8-9. If they have a bunch of injuries again, it's going to be the same result. So they better get healthy.
That's why I'm glad
quickly.
That's why I'm glad I saved the Saints for the end, because I got to be honest. As we go through these NFL team previews, and tomorrow we start the AFC West, Denver Broncos. Sean Payton is up tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't know what I'm going to say when it comes to the Saints. Because I honestly don't. When we get there, that's one that, there are some teams I could record now, and then barring some major injury, I could record it today and it could run September 8th and it would be fine. But not the Saints. I have no idea what I'm going to say about the Saints right now. Uncle Big Nick loves to poke and prod. He forgot how much he loved me complaining about Saints football. Saints football season is here. Yeah, well, we knew that already. You've been stuck in golf land. Horace is wanting to know what happened to Rashid. It is what injury did he have?
Groin injury.
And they said today that apparently Underhill's reporting that he's out for 2 to 3 weeks, which in the grand scheme of things, if that's all it is, that's fine. But those 2 to 3 weeks tend to lead to be longer than that. And I know Chris Olave has great speed, but that's not really the role he's necessarily wanting to play here. He's going to play a lot of different roles, but if you don't have a speed burner, then you're kind of forcing Olave to go back into that role, which then forces Michael Thomas. You better hope Michael Thomas is healthy, because your number 3 already a little banged up. Traquan Smith is a little banged up too. So we already have injuries showing themselves at wide receiver. Lloyd points out core muscle injuries didn't happen when we had Bo on the training staff. I mean, we can talk about the training staff all along. I mean, I keep talking about that over and over again. The training staff has got its own issues. He also said, no way Pete's not starting with that contract. I don't necessarily agree with that. This team wants to win, and they're not going to be afraid to sit Pete down. I agree that if it's even and it's what and what, then Pete is going to win. But Hurst, if they feel like Hurst is going to protect Carr's blind side and Penning is ready, then that's what's going to happen. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, a lot more coming up on this. We have to move on today because we want to keep this show underneath 35 minutes, and we got to move on and do that. Next topic of conversation, Lloyd says if he doesn't start, they'll be traded.
No one's going to want him.
I was going to say,
good. Want that contract.
Good luck with that. I mean, that's great in theory, but that's not necessarily what's going to happen because nobody's going to take that contract on. You'll get nothing for him. You'll have to eat some of that money anyway. So I don't see that happen at all. All right, we're going to talk. I want to talk a little bit about the Pac-12 and all the weird things that happened this weekend. And for those of you who hadn't seen it, some departures from the Pac-12 and last-minute departures. Arizona State, and Utah going to the Big 12. Colorado had already announced, I believe, that it was going to the Big 12. Who's left in the Pac-12? I mean, they're begging. They're basically begging for Tulane behind the scenes. When you get to that point when you're begging for a Tulane, sorry, Tulane fans, I'm not trying to diss on the Green Wave, but other than football, what is Tulane really good at right now? And they have to prove that they're going to continuously be good in football and not just do it for a year. I mean, El Rey calls it a stampede, but Spencer, man, I think we can already go from saying it's the Power 5 to the Power 4. And I think the ACC is next. It's going to be the Power 3 soon enough.
Right. Yeah. What's going to happen with the Pac-12, I feel like they'll just merge with the Mountain West, the schools like Boise State, Fresno State, Nevada, those kind of schools that are okay, but they're not. I mean, Boise State's had their moments, but none of those schools are anywhere close to competing for national championships. So, yeah, they'll drop down. And if they I don't see why Tulane would even want to leave the AAC to go there. I don't think that the new Pac-12 is going to be any better than the AAC. I know the AAC lost some key members to the Big 12, but it's they're still fairly decent conference, and for geographically, it would make more sense for Tulane to just stay where they're at. So from Tulane's standpoint, I wouldn't even want the Pac-12 unless they offer way more money, which I don't see them rolling in money right now. They're hurting. I mean, they lost all their big schools. All they got left is Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and one other one. I can't see.
And how long?
Suck. It's all sucky teams that aren't. I mean, they're good. Like Stanford and Cal are good, beyond athletics. But we're talking just athletics. The Pac-12 is screwed.
How long before an Oregon State, as Zoe points out?
Yeah, Oregon State. Oregon State's the best one left. But
how long before they jump ship as well? I mean, it's getting ridiculous. But to me, a major part, and I know we usually save our rants for last, but I got mine here before we finish the show off, because it relates to this. This is where the NCAA football TV contracts are right now. The Big Ten just signed a contract with Fox, NBC, and CBS. 7 years, $7 billion with a B dollars. $7 billion. The SEC is probably wondering, wait, what the hell did we do signing a 10-year deal with Disney a year or two ago? It starts in 2024. By the way, this is the last year you'll be able to watch the SEC on CBS. So for those of you who were complaining about Gary Danielson for the last 15, 20 years, that's one less thing you'll have to be able to complain about anymore. 10 years, $3 billion. That seems like chump change. The Big 12 signed a $2.28 billion contract with Fox and ESPN that starts in 2025. And the ACC, quite a few years ago, they probably thought, man, we got over on everybody. A 20-year deal that lasts through 2035 for a mere $3.6 billion. You can laugh all you want, but that's basically $180 million a year? $180 million a year. That truly is chump change considering what the other team, what everybody else is getting. So my rant, Spencer, it goes on to this. These ridiculous college football contracts are going to pose, they are going to eventually pose as a major threat. You can't keep giving these kinds of contracts before the TV says, you know what, we can't do this anymore. We already see that ABC and Disney are bleeding. They are cutting their personnel, all these big names that they're having to whack, get rid of these contracts because they don't have any money. They're having to borrow money and they're still making these contracts. It's going to be First off, maybe the death of ABC and Disney, or they may have to sell off little bits and pieces. Secondly, we kind of talked about a pre-production. When will we do we think we're going to see some of these teams, some of these schools go off and just say, you know what, we're going to become independents? I'm not saying LSU would ever do such a thing, but you could see an Alabama or an LSU saying, you know what, we'd make more money if we were on our own and start our own TV network, kind of like Texas is doing, but still in the SEC, reaping the rewards of both worlds. So at some point, all these things are going to collide, and it very well could be. It's not going to be the end of college football, but it's going to change a lot of things, and you worry about where all this is going.
Definitely, yeah. It's inevitable that things are gonna change. I think it's going to eventually cause a split between schools like LSU and Alabama and the rest. It'll be like an exclusive club or whatever. Probably like the Power Three, the elite
I think
SEC,
it will be.
Big 10, Big 12. All those elite teams will form their own thing and break off from the NCAA because they won't need the NCAA anymore. It's like they've outgrown them. They're more valuable to the NCAA than the NCAA is to them. So I think eventually, it might be 5, 10, 20 years, not sure when, but probably less than that. I mean, probably more like 5 to 10 years that they're going to break off and just start their own thing and get, as El Rey said, either Apple or Amazon to back them up. And then they'll be able to get out of those lengthy contracts with those, the networks, the older networks.
Yeah. And Lloyd points out it worked well for Notre Dame, and even Notre Dame today, nowhere near as relevant as they used to be, but they still refuse to go into a conference for football because they're still making the money. Spencer,
the NBC deal.
Yeah, I mean, they're still making their money. So why would they join? They would rather make the money than win a national championship, and that's kind of where we're going. I think a lot of these schools would rather make millions/billions of dollars than win a national championship. I mean, why in the world does Texas still make all this money? I mean, they're barely relevant anymore. So I don't know. It's these contracts. To me, you look at these numbers. The Pac-12 deal expires at the end of the school year, $250 million a year. And to me, that's kind of my point, which is why the schools are leaving. They see that this deal is gonna expire. I'm sure they know that behind the scenes that they're not going to make that kind of money anymore. Michael Roby asked, do we see Tulane moving to another conference? Absolutely. I think that's kind of part of all this, Spencer. I think that, if the Pac-12 survives, I absolutely see Tulane becoming a member of the Pac-12 at some point in the near future.
Well, the Pac-12 have the money, though. Like I said earlier, it's one of those things, unless the Pac-12 also offers them a lot more money, I don't see why they'd want to leave the AAC. I mean, the AAC is just as competitive and makes more sense geographically. So unless the Pac-12 gets maybe Apple, you never know. Like I say, Apple and Amazon are sitting on a lot of cash. If they come in and want to revive the Pac-12 or something, then maybe. But I don't see why they'd think
maybe other schools
like that would be.
Maybe other schools join the AAC. Maybe you see a Stanford or a Cal join the AAC.
Right. So honestly, I don't see Tulane moving.
I see more big changes ahead, put it that way. Whether it's Tulane leaving the AAC or other bigger schools that might not have joined the AAC before. But the problem with the AAC, Spencer, is, losing a Cincinnati and losing a Houston, to me, that's a big deal. I mean, that kind of takes away a little bit of your rep. It's one of the reasons why, look, again, nothing against Tulane, but Tulane's the overwhelming favorite in the AAC. I think they're like plus 200 to win the conference this year. Not just because, they were able to go to the Cotton Bowl and beat USC, but because they are head and shoulders, program-wise, kind of above where everyone else is in that conference right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you still got schools like Memphis that are pretty solid, but yeah, overall it's not as strong of a conference. So yeah, if anything, they need to try to scoop up the Pac-12 teams before the Mountain West does.
Yeah, I agree. All right, before we get to Spencer's rant, I want to talk a little bit about soccer and the U.S. women's national team. You want to talk about a disappointment. And honestly, I don't know if there was more of a disappointment than what we saw with the U.S. women's national team because, man, just the way that it ended, had chances to win and just couldn't pull it off. We're going to bring in Zoe Collins Rath to talk about it a little bit. And there she is. Zoe, welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing okay. We're doing better than Megan Rapinoe and the rest of the team. What the hell? How did that happen?
I went coaching, and I think two things can be true. I think the rest of the world can catch up to the caliber of the U.S. women's national soccer team, and they also can have terrible coaching and not play their best and probably play their worst FIFA World Cup in probably the history of the tournament. They had opportunities to score, but the Swedish goalie was just rock solid, and if you put kicks in easy spots for her to get, odds are you're not going to score on any of them.
No doubt. We talked in pre-production about, how does this equate, I guess, to this U.S. women's national team? Remember the dream teams before Larry Brown came in and coached the dream team way back when, and they failed a medal, or did they win the bronze? Anyway, they were a major disappointment. I know that. Mm-hmm. And they haven't been that bad again since. And so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, this is going to force, I would guess, a lot of changes with this U.S. women's national team, that they're never in this position again.
Absolutely. And one of my mentors, friends, and people who covered it, Candace Buckner, she even posed that question on her Instagram stories. Everyone getting flashbacks from the 2004 Athens Olympics, because it was just completely unexpected, especially for the U.S. women's national team, USA basketball back in 2004. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to shake things up after you brought in this coach of 4 years. And I don't think they want to be in this position again. And you're absolutely right. So if you want to shake things up, it kind of has to start with, who's coaching the team, who's putting this roster together.
Spence?
Yeah, Zoe, I had a question for you about the overall picture at a Women's World Cup, because I know it's been especially true for the U.S. women. They got knocked out because of it. Just the lack of scoring. Like, what's been up with that? It seems like there hadn't been a whole lot of goals scored.
The way I perceived it is that they kind of seemed a little bit nervous to score, and they weren't as quick to draw. And maybe some of it had to do with chemistry, because there was a lot of balls that were placed behind players, or too much of a lead for someone to score. And some of that, of course, builds with time. But if you're not putting the ball in bizarre places, or if you're kicking and it goes way right of the post, or it goes above the crossbar, and if you're not just putting the ball in the right places, you're not going to generate opportunities for your teammates to score. And if you can't do that, and you can't find the back of the net, then you're going to get into penalty kicks, and that is how you can lose in the World Cup. And it is a brutal way to do it.
Then it's just a crapshoot at that point.
Exactly.
If I was going to ask if you had to make a pick right now, one of these 4 teams on the screen or someone else?
England is probably a good choice. But you know what? This World Cup has lost the U.S. women, Brazil, Germany, and I'm drawing another one. So you know what? Be bold. I'm going to be rocking with Jamaica for the rest of the World Cup.
Nice. Yeah, man. Yeah. Let's go, Jamaica.
I'll put a buck on them.
Yeah, why not? It's the first time Bob Marley's daughter financed their first trip, and they weren't expecting it to make it this far, so they had to put up a GoFundMe. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament. When all the favorites are gone, you're like, you know what? Let's redo the bracket and let's just go wild.
I'm all about it. Well, thank you. And I'm sure we'll probably talk more about the Women's World Cup when they get to the championship round or semifinals round. And we're going to make you pick someone then. You're going to have to pick someone. You can't just say, have fun and whatever. You're going to have to. So get ready. The next time you come on, I'm going to make you pick someone.
I mean, you can't just bring me on for some WNBA, some women's basketball or something.
Yeah, but I'm going to make you – the next time you come on, no matter what you're talking about, I'm going to force you to make a pick.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, Jamaica's the thing.
There you go. All right, $1, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're
Zoe.
welcome.
Thanks, though.
All right, Spence. It's well, that's not.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, we have got to that point of the show where I want to hear about your rant, because there was some fun stuff going on this weekend in baseball. You know, besides the fact that my Cubs are, you want to talk about fighting, my Cubs have fought their way back. They beat the Braves 2 out of 3. They have won more games than any other baseball team since the All-Star break. But that was not the story of the weekend. The story of the weekend, and if you haven't seen it, go find it. Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez, what the hell was going on there?
Oh my God, Tim Anderson, man, he's been doing this for a while. I was on Jose's side on this. I mean, Tim Anderson's an idiot. He's always jawing with somebody, doing stuff, and just it's one thing though. It's like, if you're gonna start a fight like that, you better finish it. And the fact is, he did not finish it. Jose Ramirez finished it with that right hook, and that was wow. I was like, that was the craziest fight I had seen since Jose Batista and Rugnet Odor back a few years ago. That was like, wow. When you first seen it, I was like, oh, it's probably this is a scuffle. I was like, oh, that's more than a scuffle. That was whoosh. That was something there. And I know Zoe's probably mad at me because she's a White Sox fan, but Tim Anderson, like, come on, man, you've gotta, if you're gonna do that stuff, you gotta be able to finish that. You can't get embarrassed.
They got
like
their
that.
asses kicked. I mean, Robert Ventura got his ass kicked by Nolan Ryan was like 70. I mean, I know I exaggerate a little bit, but I mean, really, if you're going to go out, if you're going to start a fight, you better win the thing, or you're really going to look like a moron.
Exactly. And I mean, because he runs his mouth a lot. And if you're going to do that, you gotta be better than that. And Jose Ramirez, you can tell he's the kind of guy that you don't want to pick a fight with him. Like, he's one of the best players in the game. And that's one where Tim just bit off more than he could chew, and we saw the end result.
All right. Well, one of my fantasy teams, Jose Ramirez, who's been kind of a disappointment overall this season. I mean, look, he's still doing fine, but he's been an overall little. What kind of suspension do you expect for these two guys? Is it going to be more than 7 games?
I feel like that's a good number to set the over-under at, because I was saying anywhere between 5 and 10. I definitely think it'll be more than 5. I'll say, I mean, that was pretty bad. I'm going to say 8 for both. I think that at least 8, maybe 10, probably 8, because, you know, it kind of, I mean, after a few punches, it settled, like, and I'll say 8.
Well, UBN wants to know, if I can show it here. He wants to know how many points you get in fantasy for a knockout.
You should get, Jose Ramirez.
You ought to get something.
Yeah, you should get some bonus there. I like the perfect game bonus for pitch.
Well, look,
bonus.
And again, for those of you who aren't really baseball fans or haven't watched ESPN this weekend or whatever it is, if you haven't seen what we're talking about, go find it. It is easy. I don't know if is UBN predicting, or he already knows Tim Anderson got 6 games.
Yeah, he might get a little less, but I mean, he started it though. I mean, they should both get
predictions.
Well, I mean, Ramirez, I definitely think as Ramirez freaking clocked him. I know he's defending himself, but I mean, as Ellery said, sat his butt down. Like, I think,
he said he just looked it up. It already came out. That is what they got. So Tim Anderson got 6 games. Well, and Ramirez got 3.
Dang. Well, I guess that's the case. Don't start it. Don't start it, because Tim Anderson definitely started that.
Well, I mean, it sounds like whoever made the Kamara decision was making that one for Jose Ramirez.
They're getting more lax with these suspensions. That's another thing we could talk about.
Let them play like it's the Wild West.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They gotta
let them next time bring a baseball bat out to second base. If you don't like what somebody said, just whack them.
I mean, it's kind of a slippery slope, honestly. I mean, I could do a little mini rant on this about how it's like they're starting to let more things slide because they know that's what people want for TV. But I know Zoe's telling me to wrap it up, so we'll end it on that.
All right. Well, that is going to – speaking about wrapping it up, we're already past the point where we like to be. But we had such a jam-packed show. It is what it is. We are glad you joined us. We will be back on Thursday for Bayou Bets, where we'll have more talks. Hopefully not about fights. Hopefully not about suspensions. We want to just talk about football and whatever else comes up. We want to have happy joy talk. Not what we've had today. I mean, today was kind of like messed up stuff. And by the way, someone better tell me what the hell's going on with Andrew Speed by the time we come on the air on Thursday. That's all I have to say. You think it's going to happen, Spence, or not?
I've got faith in our Saints
All
team. Luke, Rod, Jeff, they'll get to the bottom of it.
All right. Well, that's going to be about it. We will be back Thursday at 4 o'clock, as we always are, on all these same social media channels. And then Friday's Datitude. I do not know who my guest is just yet. And then, of course, previews, NFL team previews, Denver Broncos in the AFC West. We pick that back up tomorrow. Kansas City Chiefs are on Wednesday. The Chargers and Raiders Thursday and Friday. We thank you for joining us. Thank you to Spencer the Guru Urquhart and Zoe Collins Rath behind the scenes. She was also in front of the scenes today, partly. I'm Jim Derry. We'll see you on Thursday. Peace and love, my friends.